Hey everyone, so this is my presentation on my interview with a psychedelic assisted therapy practitioner. The woman interviewed is named Denny, and she's a licensed marriage and family therapist and has been practicing for a little over 11 years, and she specializes in somatic experiencing. She's been practicing psychedelic assisted therapy with ketamine for the last 3 years, and she actually owns a local San Diego mental health wellness studio that offers therapy, yoga, different types of support groups, and annual international retreats. She provides holistic therapy with somatic and mindfulness approaches and often works with individuals that are typically diagnosed with depressive disorders, anxiety disorders, and trauma. I particularly chose to interview Denny because she actually, the location of her studio is in this very small town where I live in San Diego. And I've drove by this studio countless times and I've always been interested in it. I do yoga at another location here in my small town, but we really got to connect and she invited me over to her studio. So I'm excited and I hope I get to actually meet her in person and not just do a Zoom interview. But that really is what drew me to her. So, some of the key takeaways of my interview, ketamine assisted therapy accelerates therapeutic process and the process of therapy as a whole. Preparation and integration are just as important as the dosing session. A strong therapeutic relationship and the screening process are both highly essential. Self-experience of the therapist and holistic practices enhance the effectiveness of treatment. And the field of psychedelic assisted therapy faces significant ethical and accessibility challenges. So, to dive into these takeaways a little bit more, Denny discussed her experience with working with ketamine and shared with me that it can help clients move through depression, anxiety, and trauma quicker than just traditional talk therapy. She also reported that within a few sessions, most of her clients participating in PAP were able to notice shifts in perspective and their mental health symptoms. As far as preparation and integration go, she really emphasized a major theme of how a lot of the work of therapy happens before and after the dosing session, not just during it. So, preparation in her practice includes elements of logistics, mindset, and intentions. So, really trying to meet the client where they are, really focusing on intention setting and preparation, and then even logistics like how are we going to prepare ourselves for when we go home after a dosing session, right? Next day integration is a priority to help her clients process and solidify the insights that they gain through this experience, and she often uses creative and somatic techniques. The therapeutic relationship and screening process. So, screening people's done to ensure that the clients truly want to participate in a therapeutic healing journey, such as ketamine. Ketamine and PAP is not a standalone solution. It's very much so a part of a broader therapeutic process. And Denny particularly requires clients interested in PAP to engage in therapy with her for about 4 to 6 weeks before even preparing for ketamine treatment. She typically won't even work with someone who reaches out to her for ketamine assisted therapy if they've never done therapy before in their life. Self-experience of the therapist and the holistic practices that enhance effectiveness of this treatment. So Denny was like super open and transparent with me about her own personal journey of healing through ketamine assisted treatment. And she really dove into how having her own experience gave her this ability to better understand her clients and their experience on a deeper level. She explained how sometimes clients have a hard time of verbalizing and expressing thoughts and feelings that came up during the dosing session. And because she's experienced it on her own, she felt like she was better able to support her clients and understand what they were trying to communicate to her, if that makes sense. She utilizes a lot of like holistic approaches, integrating somatic work, mindfulness, music, and body awareness during her sessions. Ethical and accessibility challenges. So, obviously, there's a lot of barriers to care. It's very expensive. Insurance doesn't cover it. There are regulatory requirements like DEA clearance, which I didn't know about, and the absence of standardized training. These all, you know, really affect access to care. And Denny really highlighted the true importance of ethics, safety, and equity as the field grows, particularly with the potential legalization coming up, hopefully in the next few years, of psilocybin and MDMA. Some special considerations. So, the cost of practicing psychedelic assisted therapy is really expensive and requires special clearance. There's a higher cost of malpractice and liability insurance as a practitioner providing PAP because um, obviously there's a higher liability of someone being under the influence of a particular drug while you're doing therapy with them, in comparison to someone who's sitting in your room doing just traditional talk therapy. There's also intensive research and mentoring due to a lack of manualized training of PAP, which is, it takes a lot of time, which time is money, right? You also have to take into consideration on-site medical staff. So Denny shared with me that she has done intravenous ketamine assisted therapy in a group setting. So there was a doctor and nurse on staff, and that is highly expensive. Um, and DEA clearance. Like I had no idea that because you're providing this type of therapy, you have to have special clearance from the DEA. Perspective shifts, assumptions, and professional goals. So, preparation for psychedelic assisted therapy doesn't just include talk therapy and intention setting. It really um, has a strong focus on let's prepare meals for when you get home. Let's set up childcare. Let's make sure you have a clean and structured space to go home to, where your bedding is clean. You maybe have extra blankets and pillows on your bed or on your couch or wherever this person decides to take their rest after the dosing session. I also had an assumption that going home after a dosing session would strictly include like just resting and relaxing, but Denny actually went into detail about how she recommends some light activities such as journaling, drawing, painting, different types of creative outlets. And for professional goals, I mean, at this time, I'm very interested and intrigued by this type of therapy, but I don't know if it's something I would feel comfortable doing because I am sober and I'm completely abstinent from all um, drugs and alcohol. And so that would inhibit me from being able to experience PAP myself. So. Concerns and critiques. So, my biggest concern for this type of therapy is the access to care. I think it could be really tricky of, how many people can actually afford this type of therapy, insurance not covering it. It's a boutique service, so it's a little bit hard for me to wrap my head around this being something that is going to be recommended for people when it's obvious that they can't have this thing that could like really benefit them, you know? I almost feel like it's kind of like dangling a carrot in front of someone, like, look how much this can help you, but you just don't have the money for it, right? I also think that there needs to be a lot more research done so that this modality can have manualized and standardized trading. to improve the efficacy and the outcomes of this therapy. Key learning points. Ketamine assisted therapy works best as a part of a structured process with careful preparation, guidance, and integration to help the client make meaning of their experience here. The therapeutic relationship and client readiness are both critical with prioritizing working with clients before they participate in PAP and screening for those who are open to a deeper therapeutic experience rather than viewing this type of therapy as just a quick fix. A holistic somatic approach enhances its outcomes, incorporating music, body awareness, mindfulness, and creative practices to support trauma processing beyond traditional talk therapy. And the field is promising, but faces real barriers, including high cost, limited accessibility, lack of standardized and manualized training, and ongoing ethical and legal considerations as PAP continues to evolve. Building on insights. So, if I were to build on these insights from what I know about PAP and what I've learned through this interview process regarding future clinical and research work, here are some things that I would do. I would look for common themes, practice and preparation dosing, and integration sessions with individuals with substance use disorder. This is particularly important to me given my sobriety. So that's something that I would really want to spend a lot of time looking into. I would also review recommended steps in manualization of PAP from experienced therapists, given that there's no step-by-step training out there right now. So I would be interested in kind of exploring the operational side of like, okay, how can this be done with the highest promised results and outcomes, right? I would also explore how integration practices influence long-term outcomes and examine the use of narrative therapy as a theory for PAP. I think when people undergo PAP, from what I know and from what I've read and learned in this class, is they're reconstructing this narrative often about themselves and past trauma, relationships, even. And I think the externalization of experiences and emotions with narrative therapy could just apply so well to psychedelic assisted therapy. So that's what I have for you. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching.